Hey, what's happening? Welcome back to another episode of DB Overthinking. My name is D, and today I'm thinking about Milo Winter's The Age of Scorpius and the final, maybe, update on the world of Guardian. But before we get into all of that, I got to give a quick shout out to my Plus Ultra Don't Fretters, my top tier supporters on Patreon, Peggy Luhu and JJ Valdez. Thank you both so much for helping to ensure I'm able to keep creating content and put out as frequently as I possibly can. Patreon.com/DFretter if you want to help support the channel, get access to some bonus content, and join my private Discord server. Code-5.com/DFretter if you want to help support the channel but don't want another monthly subscription to manage. Or you can just like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And one more thing before we get into the video. Hi, Jen. Elise says that you like my videos, and that's real nice to hear. So thank you. Okay, so if you don't know the name Milo Winter, or is it Winters, never heard of the Age of Guardian before, no. And if you've never heard of the world of Guardian before, you're living a blessed life, you know, working on your own creative endeavors. Going out to dinner with fly honeys and mad cuties. I don't know what you do. I assume if you clicked on this video, you have been keeping up with this drama as it's unfolded over the last several months. Maybe you're kind of tired of this topic. I don't blame you. I'm pretty tired of this topic. But I saw a bigger YouTuber's video about this update, and I had some thoughts, and I wanted to take the time to revisit a couple points I made in my first video on this drama story. It's not as, like, drama feels like dramatic to call it that, but kerfuffle isn't quite right. I don't know. The situation, I don't know what you call these things, bro. There's got to be like a tier list. There's got to be levels to this shit. So as I understand it, I think Milo's team from the World of Guardian LLC studio production thing, they posted something on their Patreon page. I think the post was called Long Awaited Changes or something like that. We're canceling the spring release of the Age of Scorpius 2nd edition. We'll be sending a refund to any pre-order buyer who wants one. This includes all platforms/storefronts, both hardcover and paperback. As it may be evident to many of you, the company has significantly reduced operability and resources now. That means they ain't got no money. That means we can't fulfill all the refunds instantaneously because they ain't got no money. The process will be slow, and we are unable to set a clear deadline. And it's kind of weird that this is the first time in this company's existence they haven't set a deadline for them to not meet. You know what I'm saying? We know that this is insufficient. We shouldn't have let it get this far, as many of you warned us about repeatedly. Our sincere apologies. We intend to get buyers their refund in due course, as it's what we owe to all people who supported and believed in us. There's more to this post. I don't think this apology is that sincere, because they're not really acknowledging what they did wrong. Like, they kind of do, like, yeah, you warned us, whatever, and it just comes off as kind of hand wavy to me. You know, obviously I'm reading text and I'm not hearing like tone of voice or anything like that. I don't know, like, I've never tried to scale a business to this degree, so I've never really had this issue. But I think, like, spending all the money that you made off the pre-orders so that if something goes wrong you can't refund your customer base seems like a bad business decision to me. Like, my small business is such that I don't really have this problem. I did run into a bit of an issue with my second chapbook, but nothing to this degree. And so I felt like, you know, for all this talk about being a young entrepreneur and for being like innovative and redefining media or whatever, I feel like some bad business decisions were made and money wasn't handled in a way where this could have been avoided if, like, someone read a book on how to run a business or someone took a business class. Moving on with this post. As for this Patreon, we're going to leave it up, mostly because we want people to be able to see this post for a long time. But things are changing in some big ways. 1. No more posting schedule. We're changing this entirely from a transactional model, support at this tier gets these rewards, etc., to essentially a tip jar / support the artist fund. Milo still wants to create in Guardian, but he needs to be free of any external pressure or expectation in order to find out what that means. And when we have stuff to post, we will, but there's no promised cadence. So I take kind of issue with number 1 in the sense of, like, I think a lot of the pressure that Milo is under to produce is from himself. Like he's created the expectation that he's going to deliver and create this like multimedia super awesome franchise theme park movie album thing. And like, oh, well, he doesn't want to be under pressure. It's like, you did this. All of this is a result of decisions that were made. Buying it, you know what I'm saying? So I don't really think that this is a valid explanation of like no more posting. So what I think it's just the wording of it, because like I have also struggled to meet expectations that I set for myself when it comes to like Patreon. Like there's bonus content up there, but I'm often late. That fair warning, if you sign up for my Patreon, I'm not timely with the posts. I do my best to make sure that I put out the amount of content that I say I'm going to. I think also just being like, by the way, we're not going to operate anymore, but also still give us money if you want. I think including that in the post is maybe just putting a bad taste in my mouth, because in context, it just feels like it's in poor taste. But at the same time, I don't really see anything wrong with like Milo having the Patreon still up, and if people want to give a couple bucks a month or whatever, or having a Ko-Fi page to like, you still believe in them or whatever, that's fine. I just think in context, having it like in here feels odd to me. 2, no more differences between tiers. We're opening up every post to all paid members. There's now a $1 tier, so if you're paying literally any amount of money per month, you can peruse the gallery of posts at your leisure as kind of digital memorial to the Age of Scorpius. I'm expecting most people to move on, and there's no hard feelings at all. Milo and I are grateful for the support you've given us throughout this rocky road. If you decide to continue supporting Milo, then you have our humblest gratitude. Thank you for everything. Sorry for taking so long to get here. Farewell for now! ! I don't really have much to say on like changing the tiers or whatever. I think these could have been like 2 separate posts, I think is my main thing of like, hey, we realize that we have bit off more than we can chew, and now we're choking. So we are canceling the release of the second edition. We're not doing that anymore. Promised too much, and we're failing to deliver, so we're ceasing these operations. And then in a separate post, be like, hey, if you're still, you still want to support, you still want to give Milo your support financially or whatever, here's how you can do that, and these are the changes that we're going to make. That's just what I think I would do. I don't know who these team members are, or what, whatever, or what their relationship to Milo really is, like if they were friends beforehand or if they're like family members or whatever. I don't know any of that. I can imagine this is still probably kind of emotional for the team members as well as Milo, right? So maybe they didn't like take the time to think about strategy and like HR and marketing, whatever. Okay, so then let's go to Milo's statement on Instagram. I copy and pasted all this onto my notes page, so I'm not reading the thing. So I think I have the order right, but if I don't, whoops. After careful consideration, I have decided to cancel the spring 2026 release of the Age of Scorpius 2nd edition. If you have pre-ordered either a 2nd edition paperback, originally September-October release, or a 2nd edition hardcover and would like a refund, please visit our refunds page on the World of Guardian website. Though refunds will take time because of reduced business operability and company resources, I intend to see a refund through for anyone who wants one. I've seen comments and I've heard in the discourse, this should just be automatic, and the money that you collected from the pre-order shouldn't have been used to create like the artwork for the poetry collection and whatever projects were being made. Like, none of this should have been done the way that it was. I understand why people would be frustrated with this and be like, well, this should just be automatic and it should just be done. And I think I agree. I also kind of think, now this is maybe a little too paranoid, a little too cynical, but I do think that the reason that they're phrasing it like, if you want one, is because they're kind of hoping that there's going to be people like, keep the money, kid. Keep believing in your dreams or whatever. And there's going to be people who, like, when they create this, like, oh, if you want a refund, go through these steps to get it. I think they're trying to create friction. I don't know if I want to make this accusation. It comes off like they're trying to create friction for getting a refund so that some people just won't bother and they don't owe as many people the money that they gave them for the pre-order that they don't have because they spent it on paying 30 employees or however many it was for unnecessary work. Each time I sat down to work on the second edition, I've struggled to make any progress with the growing pressure of forcing myself to write a story that I should not rush. Since the backlash in August, it has become increasingly difficult for me to enjoy writing or working on a book that has so recently caused me this amount of pain and stress. I should have made this decision much earlier, but I was too stubborn and clung on to my dream despite what everyone else told me. I need to heal myself, improve my craft, and take a few steps back from social media. I agree. I think that this is like a pretty fair conclusion. Like, I agree. I do think that it's time to step away from social media and like take a writing class and like read some books on craft. I think part of me, and I wonder if other people feel this way, but I think part of this, I'm like, it feels like it's almost too late for you to have learned this lesson. You know, like, oh, we shouldn't rush it, but the timetables that they were setting, that was all them. You know, I think I'm having a hard time being sympathetic for where Milo's at right now because I'm like, you did this. I'm not sure when I will be ready to give the Age of Scorpius the justice it deserves, though I may return to the project at a later date. Right now, I need to properly heal and reconnect with the story I'm dedicated to telling. This is not the end of Guardian, as I love my world unconditionally, and it is a part of me that I will always cherish and create in. I don't plan on quitting writing at all. I'm giving up my dream of Age of Scorpius for now. I'm not giving up my passion. In fact, I'd like to build my skill as a writer while finding new stories to tell in Guardian. However, before I pursue another novel-length project, I need all the wiggle room and comfort I can get to learn and grow. Yeah, I don't know, like, I said this, I think, with the poetry collection, and even when talking about the essay that he put out. I do think that once Milo's out of the world of Guardian, he improves as a writer. Some people called me a liar for saying that, but I do think that something about being in the world of Guardian, it's almost like because he experiences it so clearly or knows it so well, he like doesn't build the world for other people and just kind of feels like you should get it. Whereas like with the poetry and with the essay, he's at the very least clearer and his stuff is readable. So it's like, you know, it's not an exponential leap in quality, but it is like there are definitely steps in quality in a good way. So I wonder if like maybe publishing stuff outside of the World Guardian is the way to go. I don't know. Also, you know, this idea of like, oh, you know, I'm going to write other things, but not novel length projects, like a series of short stories on your website, on your Patreon or whatever could be the answer. I don't know. The first edition of Age of Scorpius will remain available as an ebook. Additionally, I have 225 remaining first edition hardcover copies listed on our website. The last of the physical copies. I have no room to store the current stock of books and boxes, and do not foresee myself selling them in the future. It may take me a few days to ship those out as my living and work situation have significantly changed. Honestly, you could get one and that's going to be like book talk history. Like that's like a museum piece, you know what I'm saying? Thank you for believing in me. I'm sorry I couldn't do the Age of Scorpius justice on the timeline I originally planned. I am endlessly grateful for all the support, patience, and love given to Age of Scorpius, Guardian, and the World of Guardian team. Thank you for helping me make my dream a reality, even if it didn't end the way I'd hoped. I ask you please respect my privacy at this time as I am stepping away from social media to find my spark again. I'll be back. That last one's a thread. I think it's good that Milo steps away from social media and focuses on developing his craft and tending to his mental health. I really do. I've said it before, but I don't think any work of art is worth your well-being. I don't think any work of art is worth your mental health. You know, I think that the tortured artist trope is overdone. And some people like don't get what I'm saying when I say that because they think I mean like, oh, artists shouldn't make art inspired by painful things. I'm like, no. That's the beauty of creativity, is like alchemizing your pain and making something beautiful out of it. I'm just saying that like people who they're not even starving artists. The people who are willing to starve to be an artist are the people who like engage in self-destructive tendencies or like abuse substances or whatever for their inspiration. I feel like that shit's done. I used to know this musician who would get into really toxic relationships just so she had stuff to write about. Why would you do this to yourself? It is sad and kind of frustrating that it's only after all of this that he realizes that he shouldn't rush his work. Part of this whole situation that like I think kind of frustrated me was people would kind of talk about Milo like he was a unique, like he was an anomaly in the book talk world or in like the literary world or whatever. As this saga kind of unfolded, I think I always felt a little bad for Milo. Like I don't want to defend any of the ways he's conducted himself or how he treated people or any of the decisions that he's made, but I do like it'd be really mean to do a Mr. T and be like, I pity the fool. But like Milo, I think artists like Milo are more common than people who discussed him wanted to admit, you know, like he reminds me of me when I was in high school and middle school, and he reminds me of high school and middle school students that I've had to teach. Don't get me wrong, dude's annoying, but I feel like a lot of people were more venting frustrations they had from like someone they took a writing class with who is just a Milo Winter, you know what I'm saying? Because I think Milo Winter's just the one that went viral recently. Like, because in some of my videos about this situation, people would get mad at me for not like, you know, calling for him to be tarred and feathered and tearing him to shreds verbally. And I'm like, you must be new here, bro. It's not like what I do. That's not what I'm known for. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not my style. I don't know. I just think that it's like not really my job to hate on this dude just because he reminds you of someone you didn't like from theater camp. You know what I'm saying? And like I said before, I know that Milo only wants to write in the world of Guardian. You know, like that's the only thing that matters to him. It's his mind, body, and soul or something. What was it he said in the first one? Something about his soul. It's like I don't remember. Who cares? But I really do think that like writing outside of the world of Guardian, you know, as I think with his like poetry and his essay, like he's better when he's not writing in the world of Guardian, or maybe it's just like the novel length fiction aspect of it. I don't really know. But I think trying to write in different forms and mediums and stuff like that will help his writing, and I hope that he is able to loosen his grip on his world and understand that no one's going to take that from him, and writing outside of like the story you're aching to tell is not a betrayal to that story, if that makes sense. So like for me, I don't know if this is like interesting or whatever, because I know that most people don't really care about my own artwork. They just like my videos, they throw it on for like background noise or while they're like doing chores or, you know, cooking dinner. There's like a fiction piece, like a novel length fiction piece that I want to write, but I know that I'm not a good enough writer to write it yet, you know. And there's so many reasons why I'm not able to do that justice. I just like never talk about it, you know, and I didn't tell y'all it was coming out or something like that, you know what I mean? But like in the meantime, I'm working on other projects, and I don't feel like I'm betraying that future magnum opus, if you will. I don't know if that's like, if that makes sense, but I just think that like one of the things that I think really hurts Milo, or I think one thing that's going to hold Milo back, is this like unwillingness to even like write for fun outside of the world of Guardian, because he could only publish stuff from the world of Guardian, like a series of short stories, maybe just an atlas of the world of Guardian, just a big old, this is what it is. There's no narrative. It's just this is the world, you know, come check it out. I don't know. Write other stuff for the exercise, you know. It's like, you know, like I guess what I'm saying, like for the exercise, I mean, like there are people who swim, run, and lift weights, but they don't see themselves as like swimmers, runners, or weightlifters, and they're just doing this for the exercise, and they're not like betraying maybe the sport that they actually do, like boxing, playing basketball, playing football, or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like you can do Pilates, and that doesn't mean you're not this other kind of athlete. In the same way, like you can write a song, and that doesn't mean you're not a novelist, or you can write a personal essay, and it doesn't mean you're not a screenwriter. You can paint, it doesn't mean you're not a photographer. And I think part of like Milo's struggle is that like the world of Guardian and being a writer is part of his self-image, and he has a really hard time being flexible with that self-image, if that makes sense. And I think that's also like been part of his undoing in all of this, is like an unwillingness to accept something that doesn't fit his own personal narrative about himself. And I kind of get that, because there are times where it's like, well, I feel like I can't do certain things, or I can't make certain kind of content because it doesn't fit with like who I am, if I'm supposed to be like a comedian, or I'm supposed to be like a writer or whatever. And then I'm like, well, it doesn't really matter because no one else cares. In my previous videos on this subject, I would get a lot of like the same kind of recurring comments. You know, a lot were people who weren't even watching the video. They would just see that it's about Milo Winter and then like drop an essay in the comments just saying what they don't like about him or what their take on the situation is. And I would always like look at those and just like, I'm not reading that. Bro, just go start a Substack or whatever. I don't give a shit. Lots of people being hateful and transphobic and like getting mad at me for not bringing the jokes or bringing the drama. But the ones that were kind of like sad for me were like, I saw a handful of comments, people expressing like fear, trepidation, or hesitation about publishing themselves because they were scared that this was going to happen to them. So if you're one of those people who's feeling like anxieties over like publishing your work or putting your work out there, I really hope that you're able to move through those anxieties. I really hope that eventually your work finds its way onto somebody else's shelf, or as corny as this is, into their hearts. You might be working on somebody's future favorite book right now, and it would be a damn shame if, you know, somebody else's mistakes kept them from finding it. You know what I'm saying? Milo has been through hell, but it is a hell of his own making. And I think all the backlash that has come are a result of his decisions and his unwillingness to listen, and also like the pressure that he's put himself under, his own setting a timeline, his own decision to cut corners, whether he like was aware that that's what he was doing or not, you know, like his refusal to read his own writing, all this stuff. Like, you know, people want to say that he's a kid and he doesn't know better, but it's not true. He's grown. That's bullshit. And this isn't like the nicest thing I've ever said, but I think some people who struggle with imposter syndrome are scared that this is going to happen to them. So unlikely, because if you get your book edited and properly implement the edits that you receive from your editor, don't hire 100 unnecessary employees to start a production company when you're, supposed to be putting out a novel, really unlikely to happen. I think like a week or two before I found out about the update and the cancellation of the Age of Scorpius, one of my patrons pointed out that all of those employees are artists, but none of them were writers. And I thought that was really telling about like what Milo's priorities were. Like, I think, never mind cart before the horse, I truly think like Milo knew the eventuality of what he wanted to accomplish with his creative career. I was trying to get all the way to there. When you set your sights and you're trying to reach for the sky, it's very easy to become ungrounded. Again, I truly hope that people don't let the fear of something like this happening to them keep them from publishing. Like, your work won't be perfect. Some people won't like it, but it is still worth putting out. It's worth sharing. It's worth creating. Do everything you can to give your work the best shot that you can. Despite Milo's claims, I don't think that he did that. He may think that he did that with his like unorthodox editing process and refusal to read his own writing, but I really just don't think that he did everything that he could to give the Age of Scorpius the best shot that it could have had. So I'm going to revisit a couple points I made in the first video that I did on the whole Age of Scorpius debacle. Maybe expand on them a little bit. I think it's really important to remember why you make the art that you make and ask yourself what compels you to create. Sentiment that I kept coming across in this discourse is that like Milo doesn't write for the right reasons. I think a sillier person might try to make a pun there. I don't even think he really wants to write. And you see that with like the fact that the World of Guardian staff staff, had a bunch of artists, but didn't have writers in it, and doesn't want to read his own writing, and doesn't, like the 8-step process of revising the Age of Scorpius, so much of it had very little to do with actually writing. And I think part of that is like Milo wants to creatively collaborate. Like in my mind, Milo kind of strikes me as someone who, like, if had been given the opportunity, would have probably been like some kind of director. Maybe the World of Guardian is better as like some sort of like I guess show or short film series, maybe. Like what's the channel? It's a show, and they do like animatics. Pretty please. I don't want to be a magical girl, I think is what it's called. So it's like maybe the World of Guardian could have been that, but writing is such an accessible art form because all you need is a pen and a piece of paper to get started, or all you need is Google Sheets or Word or Scrivener or whatever, right? And it's pretty accessible to like start making that art form. So I think a lot of people will come into that, but they don't really like want to be novelists. They want to tell a story, but they don't want to be novelists. I think like Assistant to the Villain is another one where I'm like, you want to make New Girl set in the world of Shrek. And there's some other ones like you just want to redo The Witcher, but with more girls or whatever. Like not everybody who is a novelist, especially like if they're from like the book talk world, really wants to be a writer. They want the books to be a stepping stone to bigger things. So people will say like these people don't write for the right reasons. You can write for any reason. Like if you are just writing, because you want your books to be a stepping stone to your super media franchise, and you want to be like J.K. Rowling or like whatever the dude's name who did Percy Jackson. I've never read one, and I saw the movie like a decade ago. Get off my case. I don't care. Or like George R.R. Martin. Like there's some people who don't want to be novelists. They want what the novelists have beyond the novel. Any reason for like making art is a valid reason, but not all reasons are equal. You know what I'm saying? Like if you don't create for the love of the game, you're not going to have that much fun playing, because not everybody gets to be LeBron. And there are definitely writers who just like romanticize being a writer, but they don't really care about writing. And I think Milo is kind of like that. It's the same reason, like there are people who, I think I said this in my last video, but there are people who are really passionate about, they love like the dark academia aesthetic, but they don't go to school, or they don't like care for the genre or whatever. Like Catabasis is a dark academia fantasy type vibe. I don't like the book, but it is critiquing academia through unlikable characters, and that's kind of what the genre is supposed to be. But people just like to wear the outfits and have like wear darker clothes and shit, and that's also fine. There are going to be a ton of people who don't want to make art but want to be famous artists. Like as a comedian, I meet one of those like every other week. I think it's really easy to forget your why. It's really easy to forget what it is about this art form that you love, because like it's easy to get distracted by the hustle and mindset, grindset, and that like capitalistic instinct that's sort of like taught and ingrained in like the, what would you call it, like the hustleification of hobbies, or how the grindification of art. I tried to make a video on this. Maybe I need to revisit that topic as well. Who knows if I'll get to it, but like that mindset is so strong and prevalent in the Vancouver comedy scene, and it made me fucking miserable for the last couple of months, and it's only been in the last like couple of weeks where I remember why I enjoy doing stand-up, or why I enjoy making YouTube videos, and I'm like feeling like myself again. You know what I'm saying? But I think a lot of the artists that I admire have expressed in some way, shape, or form that even if they didn't reach the level of success that they're at, they would still be doing what they do. You know what I'm saying? Like if Ryan Coogler has said, even if he hadn't gotten Black Panther or Creed or whatever that's kind of led to him being Ryan Coogler, he'd still be making movies somehow. Or like Schwab has said, like she'd still be writing and all that stuff. And I just think that like There's going to be like all kinds of different like higher, like successful artists who started for different reasons, but you can tell when somebody loves doing what they do, I think, even regardless of what level of notoriety or what level of like capitalistic success they've achieved. Section 3 is called Respect the Process. So during the first chapter of the saga, I heard a lot of people also say like, like Milo doesn't doesn't write for the right reasons, but also they also said Milo doesn't read. They did also say that because Milo's never really talked about books that he likes or writers that he admires. I would kind of agree. The other thing that people said is that like you need to learn to love the process. Part of the process of writing is going back and rereading your stuff, self-editing, doing edits and stuff like that, and doing what you can to make your writing the best that it is. And like Milo would talk about his process of being like, he would just start over again, which isn't editing. That's just creating a new first draft or a new rough draft. And maybe even creating new issues in your text or whatever. He didn't seem to want to be a writer. He wanted to be seen as a writer. He wanted to be seen as this big CEO type, but didn't really want to do the work. He wanted the fruits of the labor, but didn't want to do the labor. Milo's not an anomaly. Like this is not particularly unique. This is just the one that went viral because there's a ton of artists like this, especially with our like cultural, societal addiction to convenience and obsession with good results. Milo has a very transactional relationship with his creativity. So the idea of like, I put in this amount of work, I am owed this amount of success. And I think it's a hard thing for a lot of artists to understand is that the results of your work are not up to you. When people start to get frustrated that their work is not yielding the result, people will respond by saying, well, you need to learn to love the process, because if you're not getting good results, whatever that means for you, whatever like success means to you, that love needs to be there. Otherwise, this is just like self-harm almost. And I do agree with that sentiment, but I don't love the phrase love the process, because the process can kind of suck. There's aspects of the process that are just straight up boring. They're daunting and tedious. If you become a creative entrepreneur and you're like running a small business based around your art, there's going to be aspects of that job that just suck the soul right out of you. And they're going to be really disconnected from what you wanted to do. Like if you sell prints of your paintings or like prints of your photographs or whatever, you're going to spend a lot of time like learning how to ship things. That's not part of the dream of being a painter, or a photographer. If you're a videographer or whatever, you probably wanted to make films and you didn't really want to spend hours and hours editing like videos of people working at the roofing company, but that's like how you're paying bills through your creativity. There's just parts of the process that aren't fun, so when I hear learn to love the process, I kind of think of artists like having this warm fuzzy feeling and all these joyful feelings while they're doing these really boring aspects, and I just think that that's unrealistic, and I think it's that love sounds too soft. No, that sounds toxic. Hold on. Love sounds... The place I used to live fucking sucked. Landlord was a piece of shit. Really disconnected and far away from everything in the city. It wasn't a good situation. It was quieter than this though. When I hear love the process, I think it just kind of like the way it's said contextually, it just makes it sound like everybody's like really feeling that love all the time, no matter what aspect of the process they're doing. And I think that that's kind of unrealistic. And it's the same. I think it's the same thing with relationships, where like, oh, you just gotta love each other. But sometimes like you don't have those warm fuzzy feelings, or you're not feeling all that joy about the process and what you're doing. I think it's important to respect the process.
Respect. RESPCT. Find out what it means to me.
By which I mean understand its inherent worth. Understand that there's going to be aspects of being a creative entrepreneur, being an artist, whether you want to be like a hobbyist or you want to be somebody who does art as a living, there's going to be aspects of the creative process that are not fun and don't make you feel good, but they're still part of the process and worth doing. Even though Milo is young, He's still growing. I think there's some immaturity there where it's like, well, if I don't enjoy it, I'm not going to do it. If it's hard for me, I'm not going to do it. The love aspect is, and the passion aspect is like remembering your why. What is it about this? Like, why do you want to share it? Why did you want to make it, you know? And then let that motivate you through the parts of the process that you don't enjoy, as opposed to skipping them entirely. Like not reading your own writing or not listening to your own music or whatever. Respect in your creativity is almost more important than love. You know, like if you love your partner but you don't respect them or you don't show them respect, then what are we even doing here? You know what I'm saying? There's an essay on Substack by Zara called "They Convinced You to Love Yourself So You'd Forget to Respect Yourself" that I think highlights the difference between love and respect for me. Self-respect is fundamentally different to self-love. It is not contingent upon self-affirmation or external validation. Self-love encourages a self-acceptance without challenge or accountability, while self-respect demands integrity, discipline, and most importantly, a steadfast alignment with one's values. If your worldview is one of higher purpose and one that acknowledges the reality that struggle is a condition of life, feeling good is peripheral. That becomes central. What becomes central is dignity, self-confidence, resilience, and an ability to rely upon yourself. Unlike self-love, which has few, if any, conditions and can drift into narcissism or self-indulgence, self-respect demands a lot of us. It requires that we honor our commitments and uphold our moral principles practically. It requires that we repeatedly do what we say we will do. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you're going to try to do your creativity as your career, you do need discipline, you do need commitment, you need to stick to schedules, and you can't just kind of be controlled by your emotions and controlled by, like, I guess, the pleasure you might get from creativity, or the pleasure you get for that little dopamine hit you get from getting likes on Instagram or someone telling you that they like your thing or whatever. That's all great. And I think that that's part of what can motivate you at times. You know, like somebody told me that like my videos inspired them to start like writing a poetry book, and then someone else was like, oh, like you inspired me to start a Substack, which was crazy because I don't even do that. And then someone else started stand-up because they were like, oh, he seems like he's enjoying it, I want to try and stuff. And that's really cool, that's really motivating, and that's really wonderful. And also thank you to everyone who shared stuff like that. But at the same time, in order to like respect my process, I have to show up even when I'm not feeling it. You know, like I write every day, and there are some days I don't feel like writing, you know, like that kind of thing. And I think at this part of the video, I could get into like gatekeeper type rhetoric or whatever, because what I'm not trying to say is that everyone has to follow this like set perfect process in order to like share their art, publish their work, whatever. I do think if you're going to commodify your art and try to sell it as a product, it needs to reach a certain level of quality. Books should be edited, pages shouldn't fall out of the book itself, chapters shouldn't be upside down. You know, I think music should be mixed and mastered. Movies should be colored, stuff like that. Color graded. Sorry. There's definitely wiggle room and whatnot, but there are also like processes to make things a certain way. It's kind of like following a recipe. I saw, I should have screenshotted it, but I saw like, I think my friend sent me like a screenshot of somebody giving a review of a recipe on a cooking blog or whatever. And there's like, yeah, I substituted olive oil for applesauce and it came out terrible. I don't know what I did wrong because I followed the recipe exactly. It's like, you didn't follow the recipe exactly, bro. Applesauce and oil are not interchangeable. You know, but if you want to get creative within that, like, you could get some cool results, you know? You can skip whatever steps in a process you want, you know, if you want to release music and make it all yourself. There's lots of artists that have done that. You know, if you want to, you know, if you want to cut corners or skip steps that you think or whatever, go ahead. I'm not going to stop you. I have no authority. I'm just saying that I don't think it's reasonable, but I don't think it's reasonable to resent people for not liking your work, or resent the world for not handing you a Grammy or putting you on the New York Times bestseller or an Oscar, whatever, because, you know, it's like I think it's really cool. We live in an age where you can do anything and the tools are more accessible than they've ever been, not only to create your works, but also to like publish them. You know what I'm saying? I think like if you're going to make a short film with your phone, that's really cool, but I don't think you get to yell at people for not wanting to go see it in theaters or something. It's cool if you do that, and it'd be cool if you did a screening. It's like, oh, you made this horror movie with just phones? That's crazy. But like, I don't think you get to be mad at people for not being interested if they're not interested or whatever, because I think for a lot of people, quality is like, yeah, make what you want to make and skip whatever steps you want, but I think you also just don't get to resent people if they're just not into it for whatever reason. You know what I mean? And I think Milo is definitely this kind of creative who like doesn't want to do any of it, but wants all of it. You know what I mean? And on some level, we're supposed to care because it means a lot to him. Like then we're like, oh, well, now we're morally obliged to support this work. Section 4, what am I supposed to do? So usually when I share this stance of like, I think books should be edited, you should pay cover artists instead of like drying up a lake and stealing from other artists and doing it all yourself or whatever. There's always going to be people like, well, what am I supposed to do? Not have my book published? And I'm like, yeah, I don't think anybody is entitled to success, you know? Just because you work really hard on something or just because your work matters a lot to you doesn't mean that someone has to engage with the work if they don't want to. If somebody wants to support you and that's all they need is, oh, you worked hard on it? Dope. But they don't have to. No one owes you that. Also, just because you worked on something doesn't mean it's good. And also, you're like not entitled to having your work published, you know? Like just because I really enjoy doing stand-up and some of my jokes mean a lot to me doesn't mean that I'm like owed a Netflix special or something like that, you know? And as harsh as it is to say, like, this is Milo's dream. This is your dream. Nobody is obligated to make that dream come true for you. And nobody has to care about your art just because you do. However you envision or dream up your success, you know, I do wish people success in their creative endeavors, and I really hope that they're able to live a fulfilling creative life if that's what they want. However that looks, maybe that's paying the bills off of your art, maybe that's having like a really fulfilling hobby on the side, or maybe it's something else. I don't know. Maybe it's a secret third thing. I don't know. But I do think that like however you envision it in your head, it's probably going to look different once it becomes reality. Because even like with your art, you envision it perfect in your head. Once you put a brush to canvas, once you start typing words or writing words on a page, it's no longer perfect. And I think the same thing will happen with your success. I do hope that you make it happen for yourself. You find ways to get to that success, but it's probably going to look different. And you need to be like flexible and open to what the universe or God or whatever has in store for you. Just because it's your dream, just because it's something you really want, doesn't mean that you're owed it, and it doesn't mean you get to treat people like an asshole. You know, like I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, I really hope that Milo heals and recovers from this whole thing and is able to self-reflect and grow from this, learn from this. You know, hopefully he stays off the internet for a little bit. I kind of don't believe that he's stepping away from social media. I'm sure he's going to be lurking in the darkest corners of Reddit but I do hope that he finds joy in his writing again and finds comfort and safety in his world of Guardian. I hope that, you know, anybody watching this who was feeling fearful of publishing their work, I hope that you work through that fear, and I hope that you share your work, and I hope that everyone who's watching this video and made it this far has a really good rest of their day or week or whatever. Really appreciate y'all watching. Patreon.com/DFredder if you want to support the channel, get some bonus content, join the private Discord server. Ko-fi.com/DFredder if you just want to support the channel but don't want another monthly subscription to manage. And if you don't have any discretionary entertainment funds, no worries. Please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. My name is D. Don't fret. I'll see you next time. Peace out.